Oh, hey, welcome to my desk. Today I'm going to be drawing a Bob Ross painting. Okay. So, I've actually drawn a Bob Ross painting before on this channel, and I can put the link to that video in the description if you want to watch that one. But I just wanted to do another one because, well, first of all, Bob Ross painted a lot of paintings, like so many, on his show, The Joy of Painting. And so, there were a lot to choose from. And second of all, because I love Bob Ross. I really do. And honestly, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be making these videos. So I just wanted to, give him his flowers again. And where is it? The name of the painting that I'm gonna draw today is Island in the Wilderness. Island in the Wilderness. Island in the Wilderness. Okay, and I'm gonna be drawing this today with colored pencils. In the first video I did of about Bob Ross, I used markers, but I think today I just want to use pencils. And obviously, Bob Ross used paint. He was an oil painter. But I'm not a painter, so I can't really, I guess I could, but it wouldn't be good. And as you can see, I didn't really sketch this out. The only thing I did before was, I made this little rectangle as a frame, which is about 7 or 10 by 7 centimeters. And I'm just going for it here. If things are not exactly perfect or in the right place, that's okay, because Bob Ross did it this way too. He didn't really well, actually he did have a plan, but he kind of made it seem like he didn't on the show sometimes. He would be like, well, where can we put this tree, and he'd be like, let's make some decisions. But the truth is that he was, like, oftentimes making that painting for like the second or third time when it was being recorded. Apparently Bob Ross would paint all of his paintings 3 times. One to practice, and then one to record, for the series, and then another final one for like the photography. Apparently, after they would record, they would take pictures, and he would be like painting the painting again. Which, that's crazy. That's a lot of painting. Not that it took him a long time, but Anyways, so yeah, Bob Ross was like a little bit of a grifter in that way. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I guess I was a little bit surprised when I found that out. And I think in the last video that I did, or the other one, I talked a little bit about, you know, how he got his start, which is interesting. He started learning to paint in the military, and he talked about that time in his life a lot. He became, you know, a pretty high-ranking sergeant in Alaska, and you know, he was the guy that yells at all the little soldiers. I can't remember, privates, I guess they're called. And he hated it. He hated to be like mean and to have to yell at people. And obviously people know him as like this incredibly soft-spoken guy, so he very, very much had to go against his own nature, I think, in that job. But he started taking like oil painting classes while he was in the military. And he loved the process of painting, but he didn't love what his teachers wanted him to paint. He was more interested in painting like landscapes and trees and stuff, which he obviously became very well known for. But his teachers in the military, like his professors, whatever, they liked, you know, more abstract art. So they were teaching him all these techniques of oil painting, but not like how to draw a tree or paint one, which is really all he wanted. So he started to watch this other educational program. I think it was called The Magic of Oil Painting. And the host of that show, I think his name was like Bill something. I can't remember. I forgot his name last time as well. But the host of that show was like teaching his audience how to do this one particular technique with oil painting called wet on wet. And that kind of became Bob Ross's thing on the show, on his show. And it became kind of a drama later that the host of that original show that Bob Ross learned his technique from got kind of mad because Bob Ross's show became like incredibly popular, like much more popular than that original show. So there was kind of a beef there. But Bob Ross often would mention him on his own show as like a great teacher and give him credit for the technique, even though obviously he didn't create that technique. It came from like the Italian Renaissance. So yeah, that was initially like what really caused a lot of drama. But then later, because he had met this family or this couple, I think they were called Kowalskis. I can't remember their full names, but the Kowalskis were kind of his financial backers, you know? And they helped him start Bob Ross Inc. And the show initially was just like in a few different like local TV stations, like PBS local stations. But then over time it became super popular and started becoming like internet, or I mean eventually internationally, but it became like nationally broadcast in the US. So I guess when he became incredibly popular, it became it attracted more negative people and haters and stuff. But then after he passed relatively young. He was 52, I think, when he died of cancer, I think. So the initial financial backers, they sued his brother for all of the rights to Bob Ross's name and image and work, like all of the paintings that he did, which they won, and then they settled with the brother, I think. But yeah, there was drama there, which is sad to hear about. So yeah, now I'm just going back into these different areas that I colored before to add a little bit more dimension and details to these blocks of color with a slightly darker color, just to make it seem a little less messy as well. And I'm using that same color from these darker trees, just as like the low lights, I guess. Because I use like a darker gray for the trees, for that part, I don't know if I'm making sense. But yeah, basically I'm just trying to add a little dimension, little detail. But yeah, pretty deep, pretty interesting. His life, and I do know, or I heard they were gonna make a movie about his life, but I don't know if it's out yet. I don't think it is. But I definitely would want to see that and see how much of what I'm telling you is wrong. I think I maybe made a few mistakes in the last video, so hopefully I'm not doing that again. But yeah, I'm just trying to smooth out and add a little bit more contrast here and there. But I'm pretty much, I've got all the major elements already mapped out. So now I'm just trying to refine it a bit and smooth it out, add a little bit more finesse to it, Yeah, it kind of seems like this painting was made to be at sunset in Alaska, probably, which is where Bob Ross was stationed in the military, and he was very, very inspired by that landscape. It continued to be a theme in his work. But he's actually from Florida, Daytona was where he was born. Daytona, I think. And then he grew up in Orlando. I think that's like Central Florida. So I do feel like these trees here, they could use a little more coverage. Okay. I think maybe I actually do want to add a little more finesse to this. Just because it looks looking a little messy. I mean, this is just like a study, but I want it to look nice, you know. But yeah, just putting the final touches on this, and then we can call it. All right. Yeah, I think I'm done. Well, I hope you like this one. Let me know in the comments what you think of Bob Ross. And I will see you in the next one.